the fact that a video surfaced that was real intriguing. The Baltimore Ravens GM, Eric DeCosta, came out and was speaking about draft strategy. And he referenced a really heavily researched article that kind of talks about, general managers that kind of maybe don't have enough research to make the claim that being so aggressive is worthwhile. So it was very interesting because, in essence, and you can go check out the video and do your research on the article. It's an in-depth 17-page research. I read it all. It's very intriguing because it presents a different opinion. And Eric DeCosta's opinion, which is really great. It would be interesting if ever Brad Holmes and Eric DeCosta got to sit down and hash this all out. It would be very interesting because Eric DeCosta said, look, in essence, the difference between, evaluating players at different spots is not that great. So trading up is really not worth it. His opinion was the idea is when there's really not that much differentiating a small cluster of players, the way in which you improve success is improving the number of chances that you get to hit on a player. So his formula, in essence, is trading up might not be as successful as trading down, getting more picks. And then you look at what the Eagles did. How many picks did the Eagles have in this last draft? 10. So what that strategy indicates is a different philosophy than Brad Holmes, which is Brad Holmes' strategy, which is still successful. It's just a different way of looking at it, which is, hey, if we find players that fit us, what our needs are, we want them no matter what it takes. Trading 2 third-round picks, Brad Holmes says, I don't value the players being as good as maybe an Amon-Ra St. Brown 4 years ago in the 4th round. There's a different level of talent that I'm not seeing based on his evaluation that he's willing to part ways. DeCosta has a different view. What did you make of that when you watched that video, reading about it? It was very interesting because it lends a little bit more to what I think is that, the difference between a couple players, in my mind, excuse me, is not that great based on how Brad Holmes is presenting it. But at the same token, I like the way that guys like Howie Roseman and DeCosta get down. But also, too, you can make the argument the Ravens haven't had as much playoff success in recent years. What did you make of what DeCosta said? I thought it was a very interesting idea that he presented.
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing with that argument is that you have more capital, you have more resources to be able to do the things you want in the draft. And whether that's drafting 10 guys and taking a bunch of swings, or whether that's making a package and moving up and going and getting that guy you want. Like, those are both arguments that can be made off of that same strategy, because at the end of the day, the draft picks are arguably the most valuable resource that a lot of these GMs have. Because like I know we still see player for player type of trades in the NFL, but I think the days of swapping superstars and things like that, I think that day is over. And instead, if you want to go get a superstar, you got to give up a lot of draft picks. And so accumulating all these resources is wise. It's a good strategy. And so I can definitely see the value in somebody like DeCosta thinking that, okay, we don't need to trade up. Let's be that team that everybody wants to trade up with so that we can just continue to stockpile all these picks. Because at some point, you've got to make a move. Like, let's face it, where the Lions roster is at right now, it's no guarantee that these 7th round picks that they have are going to even make the roster. And so with picks like that, you have to understand going into the draft, okay, we have, if they sit down at their meeting, they're like, okay, we have like 9 roster spots available. There's no sense in making 10 picks because you've got one of these guys isn't going to make a team, or they're going to push somebody else out. So I do think that there's value in stockpiling picks, because in a roundabout way almost, I think that it is the best way to make the moves you want, is to have all these picks. I'm not as big of a fan of, okay, let's just load up on draft picks and pick 10 guys or 11 guys, just because I don't think that all these guys are going to bring that sort of value to your team, as to where if you package a couple of 6th or 7th rounders and move up into the 4th or the 5th because you like a guy in that round, like, that to me helps you more than standing pat and taking 2 guys in the 7th round that might not even make your team. So I do see the argument and I do understand it. I just think that when you get all these picks, that would be in my opinion, the prime opportunity to go make the move. Rather than if you're sitting there with 4 picks and your well is dry, like that's to me when you should be looking to stockpile. I think it's all kind of comes in waves. I wouldn't be surprised if the Lions, find a way to somehow get back into the 3rd round of next year's draft, even though they traded both of their 3rd round picks. But that to me is kind of the interesting portion of all this is, how do you use this year's picks, but also how do you use next year's picks in this year's draft. So a lot of different ways that teams approach the draft. It's so much fun to learn about how each team kind of has their own styles. And it's part of the reason the draft is so much fun.
No doubt about it. And it's interesting because there's a lot of different ways to build a roster, and the Lions have their firm strategy, and it's hard to argue because they've turned their franchise around to be a perennial playoff team. Had a chance to be in the NFC Championship game, and so the Lions also are thinking based on this strategy. Hey, we still drafted a lot of good players that were hurt last year, so now let's have an opportunity to see what their full potential is one more time if they get on the lucky side of injuries.